Hi, everyone, and welcome back to episode 2 of this Too Shall Pass podcast, a podcast created from the women-founded group Affirming Always. My name is Kay, and my mom, Becky, and I are your hosts.
Hi, everybody. Thank you for joining us for another episode. I'm super excited. Episode 2. I hope you guys liked episode 1. I had so much fun filming it. It was really cool. Got some good feedback, so I'm excited to be back. Talk about some of the things that we said that we were going to be diving a little bit deeper into. So I hope you guys like this episode as much as you liked the first or more.
And apologies as well for the slight delay in uploading. Some of you may not know, but I actually live in New York and my mom lives in Connecticut, and I'm in school as well as working full time. So sometimes our schedules get a little bit wonky in coordinating. That being said, we definitely want to find a consistent schedule that works for us so we're able to, at least to start, get 2 episodes out on the same day every month, so that way we have content to keep everybody interested, and then as it kind of picks up a little bit, maybe move into weekly episodes as well. But with that, this week we're going to be discussing, I think, some hard topics to talk about, things with mental health, coping with trauma, stories of health diagnoses, suicide, domestic violence, and ways we've also learned to deal with these things, the positive and the pros on the other side of them. But if any of those topics are potentially uncomfortable for you to listen to, as much as we love the support and we're really happy that you're here for another episode, take care of your mental health first. So trigger warning to those topics.
Yeah, definitely a trigger warning. We want to make sure that you guys are taking care of yourself. And I think, Kaylin and I have had a lot of mental health struggles just throughout life. And I think a lot of people have. So hopefully this is helpful, people to think that, you're not alone. And I was just thinking, Kaylin, like back generations, like, grandparents, great grandparents and stuff like that. I think the topic was so taboo and people just kind of like ignored it, or it doesn't exist. Like, you don't talk about it, it doesn't exist, or
and if it did, you're crazy, so you don't tell anyone.
Or like what happens in our house stays in our house. Like we don't, and I think I'm thankful that it's so much more out there now and it's being talked about. There's definitely a mental health crisis in this country, probably all around the world, but I'm just definitely glad that it's talked about more, and I'm glad that we can share our experiences and you can share your experience about it, and kind of what you recognized and kind of what you did to try to help the things that you've been going through. As well as some of the things that I've done for myself also, and the opportunity. And I just want to say that I'm so thankful that you and I have the relationship now that we do, because I feel like we really get to talk about our struggles to each other and relate to a lot of them, which is good.
And come from a very emotional but also resolution based place for each other, like not just a listening ear but a place of ideas and support in whatever those next steps for solving the problem may be.
Definitely.
I do want to say, onto your point, I agree to think about like how crazy it is that, even 20 years ago, how, it didn't matter if you broke a bone or you had the flu, you could call out of work. But if you were contemplating whether you even wanted to be on this earth, you better get your ass in the door and clock in. Because I don't even necessarily want to say it wasn't taken as seriously, but it wasn't as understood, I feel like. But with that, I feel like there's still a lot of length to go.
Oh yeah.
In present day, I think that we have a better understanding on the reality of it, the fact that it does come down to a medical science and chemicals, and that these are real problems. They're not just heartfelt emotions. It's an illness to an extent. But I also feel myself being in so many positions, even living in 2023 as a young woman, having to defend how I feel or why I feel that way, or over explain, why I do certain things to take care of myself mentally even more than I do physically sometimes. So I'm really excited to do this episode because I feel like anything I can do to contribute to the conversation and to just, even if it's one more person, hear how real this is for everyone, and all those times that you feel like nobody's ever felt that way, you're
Mhm.
probably wrong. You're definitely wrong. Um, and I'd like to preface with, we're not licensed therapists. We said that last episode, but I don't want to give the impression that we're trying to coach you on how to get through your life problems. This is simply our experiences and thoughts being shared, and like I said, hopes of contributing to the conversation on mental health and the importance of taking care of it, if not more than your physical health at times.
Definitely, definitely. And I think too, like really realizing that you can't tell on the outside what somebody's going through, which I think is so hard for people. And I told you that I kind of wanted to just bring this up, and I'm just going to use this as an example. The recent suicide of Twitch, which struck a chord so much with
Terrible.
me because I wasn't like a huge diehard Twitch fan, but I knew him from the Ellen show and I really enjoyed him and his TikToks with his wife and the dancing, but you never saw this man not smile. He was joking, he was smiling. And I think that's why it hit me so hard.
I just got
It hit,
chills.
it hit
Yeah.
me so hard, like what? And I think you just don't know what people are dealing with, and people are able to, just put on this facade or this front or whatever so that people don't know what they're going through. So you really can't take somebody's presentation necessarily just because their life seems amazing and assume that they're not struggling on the inside, because clearly people are. Clearly he was. I mean, that was just such a
Or the woman that I forget whether she was Miss America or Miss something, that in New York City, dived off a 20 plus story foot building the day after she had just signed like a multi-million-dollar contract for
yeah.
some partnership with some brand. And it's like, people looked at her post the day before and were like, this woman is on top of the world. Like, she's considered one of the most beautiful women in the planet. She just set herself, her children, her grandchildren up for life. She has opportunities knocking at her door. She is smart. She is empowered. And at the same time, that one piece of big news, oh, obviously a lot of other contributing factors, but wasn't enough to take the pressure off of
No.
whatever else she had happening in her head at that time. And it's just sad that people, especially with social media, have to make sure we get our post and make sure we get our smile and make sure we're engaging, make sure we're commenting, because everybody else's life is so good. And even if mine isn't, I have to show that it is. So I'm still a part of this society and this culture that like requires validation on how happy you are, essentially, when
Yeah.
it's really doing the opposite.
Well, and that's the thing. I mean, bringing up social media, and I think that's so hard for a lot of people because you do now with social media and with Facebook and all these different, social media outlets, you see how amazing people's lives are because that's what they portray. They portray the good, right? And why not portray the great things? I mean, and I'm a poster. You guys know that I post on Facebook and I post pictures of my family
Me
stuff.
too.
Um, I have a great life, but I cry all the damn time. Like I have my struggles. But I think Facebook really, all these social media outlets portrays people as just being so happy and so wonderful, and you really don't know. I always say you don't know what goes on behind closed doors. You don't know what happens when people put their head down on their pillow at night and the internal struggles that they have. Me personally, I've always considered myself a fairly open book in terms of talking about just with my family, with my friends when I'm struggling. I'm not somebody that hides it. Um,
I think that's where I get it from, though. Like, I appreciate that because I have never been one who's great at dealing with how they feel, but I've always been one who is able to express and articulate how I felt.
mhm,
I may not have been able to say why or respond in the most appropriate way, but I've always been able to say, like, Mom, I am anxious, or Mom, I am angry, or Mom, I'm scared. Like, I was able to differentiate and communicate those feelings, which I think was a great thing, about you. Like, I appreciate that.
And that
you're able to do that.
absolutely. And it is a great thing. And I'm glad we have that. But I think there's a lot of people that don't have that, or that are in families that don't understand that mental illness exists, or that it's not just because you're getting your period, or it's not like, I just
Mm-hmm.
don't get it. Why, I don't understand why you're so upset. Your life is so great. I mean, there's days when I get upset or anxious or depressed, and I can't pinpoint a reason why. Like,
Yep.
that's just part. I mean, I have anxiety and depression. I do. I do take medication for it, and I'm not ashamed of that. Um, and and I use some other tools that we kind of talked about last time that I've started in terms of meditation, yoga, journaling. I mean, there's things that I've kind of added into my daily life to help with those anxiety and depressions, and
Mm-hmm.
it's helped me. Definitely has helped me. I wish I found those things a long time ago. Um,
Agree. I understand the comment of like, I wish you found it sooner, but like, take so much pride in your commitment to it since you did find it, because whether or not it's only been a 2 year long, 1 year long journey for you, like, from the moment that you experienced the difference it made, you've stuck to it, you've committed to it, you've shared
yeah,
with other people the impact, like, you've put in the work. So, whenever you think on that thought, just remind yourself of like how much time the rest of your life that you don't have to waste with those shitty feelings.
absolutely.
Like, the amount of time you didn't have it isn't going to compare to the amazing time
Right.
from now
Moving
till forever
forward.
that you do.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah,
I was just going to say, going kind of back to what we were saying too about, you know, posting things, and not always, people aren't always feel like they can share. I just want to give a shout out to a lot of the ladies on, I want to go back to the Affirming Always page just super quick,
yeah. Yep.
because there's been a lot of women that have posted their struggles, and maybe that's an easy platform to, or a hard platform to. It can go either way. It could be because I really don't know a lot of these people, therefore it's easy to
Mm-hmm.
share, or it can be I do know these people and I'm still sharing,
It's
but
vulnerability.
the vulnerability, I'm so proud of the people, and that's kind of what we wanted. The conception of the Facebook page is for people to be able to share and feel safe, and I'm just so happy with the women that have been able to do that. And there are some people that have really posted like, listen, life is really shitty right now. I'm really struggling. I really need support. I really need good vibes. I really need prayers. Whatever your way is to send support to people, because it's different for everybody. But I just wanted to say, I want to give a shout out to those women who felt comfortable to share, because
Yeah.
you're not alone. You're not alone, you know?
And I feel like you and I have a very unique, and Amanda as well, have a
Mhm.
very unique perspective of affirming always, because for us it's like our baby. Like, we see it as something that we want to be great, and we put just as much effort into the production and conception and guidelines and you know upkeep of the group as we do the vulnerability aspect of it and the emotional aspect. And that's different from a lot of people in the group, because they're coming from a membership standpoint
Mhm.
and not coming from a
Mhm.
monetarization standpoint.
Mhm.
But I also find that to be such a blessing, because I not only have been able to see the difference that it's making for other people, but I also now have this community of 1199 other women who are there for me
Yeah.
when I posted something, super super discreet, not going into any detail the other day, just like, hey, I'm having an icky day, don't have a reason why, but I just
Mhm.
don't feel good. And that was the extent of my post. And
The response
more
is amazing.
comments than I could even read were just like, "Hey, I got your back.
Yeah.
Like, you're good.
Yeah.
I got your back." And I think that is incredible, because it made me feel like these people can't take me out of the situation I'm in right now that is making me feel this way. However, this is a list of people who, if I'm like, "Hey, I just need to call and freaking scream for a second, would you mind just picking up the phone so I'm not alone right
Yeah.
now?" would be like, "Yep, this is my number. Give me a call." And
Absolutely.
I hope that all the women in this group, know that we would do the same for them in a heartbeat.
100%.
Um,
100%. Um, so do you want to get a little personal? You want to start to get a little
yeah, man, let's do
personal?
it.
I'm gonna share something just that because I think it's funny. So Kaylin and I were talking before we started the podcast today, just kind of like shooting the shit for a couple minutes, and I was like, I look like shit today. I'm gonna be honest. I went to the ice castles this weekend with my other kids and our friends.
I
And
wasn't invited. No, I'm just kidding.
and remember that part about you live in New York and you go to school and all that. So no, you were invited. Anyway, so I was like, I'm tired. Like, I really don't look great. And then Kaylin's like, well, look at me or whatever. I've had a rough day and this and that. So she's like, I'm going to call you back in a little bit. I'm going to go put some mascara on. I was like, oh, will that do it? She's like, Mom, mascara fixes everything. So we hung up with each other. So what did I do is I got off my little bed here where I'm sitting and I went and put mascara on. So then we called each other back and I was like, Kaylin, you look great. I put mascara on too. She's like,
And
mascara
I was
makes
like,
everything better.
changed woman.
I just wanted to share that. I thought it was funny.
That's like an example though. So I follow this TikToker. I am going to post her name in the comments because I'm going to be completely honest. I don't know how to pronounce it and I don't want to butcher her name and have nobody know what I'm talking about or pronounce her name wrong. But she is this absolutely amazing TikToker who has this series called Pockets of Peace. And what it is she records small moments every single day where it's like so minimal in her day, but it gives her a moment of like serotonin boost, like just happiness. And it might be that first moment that you put mascara on one eye and you just see the glow up of one eye to the other. It might be the moment that you first get a whiff of a candle after you light it, but it is recognizing and like finding those little moments that make the days worthwhile and add up to bigger moments, and it really changes your perspective. And I every day tried to like slowly, even some days I have 3 things on there, some
Mm-hmm.
days I have 50 things on there, because sometimes I'm in a place where I'm looking for the negative, to be completely honest, and it's really hard for me to recognize those moments. But one of the things that I do after seeing her videos is, if I feel shitty, I put mascara on. And that's something that you've always told me to, like, girl, do your makeup, not in the sense that you not look good without it,
When
but
you look
when
good, you feel good. For me, like the days if I actually if I'm not feeling great or like I don't want to go to work or whatever, I take a shower, do my hair, put my makeup on because for me, it's always one of those. Well, if I look better, I feel better.
yeah,
So, but you look
we
great all the
digress.
time, just so you know.
Thank you. As do you. Got it from my mama. Um,
Okay, so
but yeah, I think the best place to kind of start is for me to take a little bit of a look into like my childhood. I think a lot of things from an early age you already know about, because I was always very vocal growing up to you, and things, when they didn't feel right to me, I didn't always know what those feelings meant. But I was a kid who was taken out of classes once a week to go sit in therapy at school because I just couldn't figure out
mhm,
what it was that I was feeling. I was the kid that had special relationships with teachers that were math teachers, but when I was bawling my eyes out on my lunch break, they would let me just sit in their chair and eat candy for lunch, because I just needed that
mhm,
extra affection, because at that point in time, I know more now, but I didn't understand everything that I was feeling.
mhm,
Um, but looking back, I'm like, that was definitely a sign that something, wasn't right. And mom, I'll let you shed some light, as well, on what you remember and what maybe gave you an inkling that I was struggling with mental health from a young age. But something that makes, this topic so real for me is that the most traumatic experience of my life happened in the last 5 years, but the feelings that came from that were familiar to me. They weren't new feelings, and I realized that that situation maybe amplified them or took them to the breaking point to where I needed to reach out and get help. It kind of made me realize that I've been struggling with like internal thoughts and fears and emotions that maybe aren't normal, not in a bad way, but are things that there's ways for me to help that. And I don't just have to exist with those thoughts.
mhm,
That's not just like a part of happy
mhm.
existence. Um, so one of the first feelings that I really remember having from a young age was just this like consuming fear of death, but not even dying, like what happens after. Because as we mentioned, in the last episode, we're not a super religious family. We believe in being good people and we believe in a higher power. And we believe that if you are a good person, you'll go where you're meant to go. Most people in our family, I would say, do believe in God in like the Christian form of God. But with that, we don't abide our lives by the Bible per se. And the only thing I knew of what comes after death was heaven and hell and God, but I didn't even really understand the dynamics of those things because religion just wasn't a super heavy topic. So I wasn't scared of those two options per se, but I was scared because I didn't know if that was even real because like I didn't have proof. I didn't have this like faith or overwhelming belief in God until I got to an older age and had gone through other experiences. And um it was to the point that I was having panic attacks or telling you like we would be at Kohl's and it would be time to leave and I didn't want to get in the car because I just had a feeling we were going to get in a car accident and die.
Anytime,
And
anytime Dad and I left and went anywhere, I mean, you really had a hard time with us even walking out the door because I think you had fears, and I think even more than that, it was just anything that was of the unknown to you. I mean, you had fears of like space or fears of
yeah, I
bigger
used to not look at
bigger
stars.
things that you just couldn't explain or
Oh my God, that just gave me goosebumps because I used to not even like be able to look up at the sky because it would just give me this overwhelming
it's
anxiety
that
of
unknown of a bigger thing that you just, and you did struggle with those things. And I think I noticed a lot of your struggles definitely were normal. Obviously, growing up, you're going to have struggles. You're learning about yourself. You're learning to be independent, and you get through a point where you're learning like you still want to be under, your parents, obviously, and their love and affection. But now you're also trying to find your own way, and you're trying to find where you fit in. But a lot of your, I don't want to say problems, but a lot of the things that you came across that you struggled with were just so much more amplified than I feel like other people's
and they
were.
consumed me. They
They
took
consumed
over my
you.
life. They affected my ability to be productive in school because I would be in physics class and something would trigger this anxious thought that I couldn't go away. And now I'm having a freaking meltdown somewhere. Like,
Yeah, things were definitely amplified. And now looking back and now being able to talk as adults, when you're understanding more and able to really put words to your feelings, um, I think now going back and looking as a child, a lot of it does make sense. Um,
mhm,
but definitely things were amplified. You definitely struggled with peer relationships.
yeah.
Relationships with peers was a tough thing for you,
And still
and
is
it
for
still
me.
is.
I
Yep.
I struggle to make any meaningful connections outside of family
Hmm.
or romantic.
Hmm.
And that's just very honest. I struggle to develop a trust in friendships. Like I just hit a wall where like I have one person that I consider my best friend in the planet. She knows who she is. I'm not going to put her on the spot in case she doesn't want to be mentioned, but my mom is her second mom. Her mom is my second mom. She could show up at my mom's house when I'm in New York and walk in and wouldn't have to say anything and people would be like, "Oh, hey, you're home." Like she is honestly one of the most stable
Hmm.
relationships that I have ever had in my life. Um and I'm so grateful to her because she's seen my ugly side. She's walked me to therapist's office in school when I had a meltdown over something. So I'm super grateful for her, but we can go into this deeper on another episode, but my acting life in LA, I think as much as that was, and I don't think I've ever even told you this before, but as much as that was the most amazing experience for me, the amount of anxiety I would feel after each 6 week period, like going to LA and having to readjust and acclimate to a whole new group of friends, then going back to CT and having no friends because I'm never around long enough that I meet with these people and I'm off doing things that make them be like whatever thoughts that they had that, whatever. But I don't want to like put thoughts on other people or feelings onto other people, but I struggled to make any friendships either place I went because I would form this deep connection with someone super super fast in a short amount of time, and I would latch onto them, and then it would be time to leave, and then by the time I came back their friend group had changed, their life had changed, their situations had changed. And then, you know, I, being a theater kid and an acting kid, I was and still am a very theatrical human being. I'm very over the top. I'm very outspoken and
No.
opinionated.
You?
And but from a young age, that's a very overpowering type of energy to be
Yeah.
around for other kids. And I can see that now. And I can see how even if I never had ill intentions, the power of my enthusiasm and just loudness and openness to being myself sometimes I think took light away from other people that also deserve spotlight too, because I was just so used to existing in that spotlight that I had no problem walking to a room and changing the attention to being on me. And I can see how now that kind of affected my ability to make friendships. But then because of that, I think I secluded a little bit, and now I'm more shy and I struggle more to make those relationships and to like be the outspoken one and kind of get into it with people because I spent so long being deterred from how that impacted my relationships.
And I think that's really honest, and I think that's very insightful. Um,
Yeah.
very insightful. And I also think just with the struggles of your mental health and not being able to necessarily put words to that, I think also impacted a lot of your peer relationships just because you were very emotional. You were, I mean, there was bullying situations, at school. And I think just trying again for you to figure out where you fit in, what peer group you fit in with, and just trying to also maintain or reel in your own emotions that you were really struggling with, just as a whole impacted relationships with others. I just wanted to give a brief, you were talking about LA. So for people that don't know, if I can just give a brief. So when Kaylin was 11 or 12, she actually grew up in theater, um, but got her connected in Los Angeles through a program that we did here in Connecticut. But she went out probably 4 times with my mom, which was amazing that my mom was able to do this. But she was 11, 12, 13 years old. She would go out to LA for 6 weeks at a time. She had an agent and a manager and was auditioning for, I mean, major movies. She was in a couple commercials. She was on a Law and Order episode. So she was a child actor. And it was funny because at the time we really wanted to pursue that. Like, oh my God, this is the coolest thing. I mean, she was meeting celebrities. She was doing documentaries out in LA. They came out and did a documentary on her. She was staying at a place where child actors stay, a
I was
community.
best friends and neighbors with people who are top paid young 20s actors and actresses now. Like they really fulfilled it. I was on the path to
But
really fulfilling that.
I talked to Mimi now, about it, and I think we're both so thankful that it never went anywhere. I love the
Yeah.
experiences you had. You had some amazing experiences. I'm sorry that it impacted friendships for you. That sucks. That's I'm not happy about that part. But I think you had some amazing experiences that no kids have.
And my relationship with Mimi, I think, is what it is today because of that. Like she, next to you and Dad, her and Papa are the most
Absolutely.
hands down meaningful people in my life. So I
Absolutely.
think that that played a big role in
But
that
I,
as
I
well.
definitely think that we're all as a whole glad it didn't go anywhere. I mean, you look at the celebrity life and you look at the young ones. I mean, look at Justin Bieber. Look at Britney Spears. Look at Miley Cyrus, who I think has turned
Selena
around.
Gomez just
Selena
did a
Gomez,
documentary on her mental
which
health.
I highly suggest you guys watch. As a side note,
Yeah, it
it's great. Kaylin, you had me watch it, and I think you related
mhm.
a lot to a lot of what she was going through.
She put how I felt into words. I had never heard how I felt explained so
Yes,
transparently, and it made me emotional, but it also made me feel so like more connected to any famous person than I'm only doing quotations because I try not to like reference them for like that, like, you know,
Mhm.
but that is the most I've ever felt like a famous person was so transparent about like this life is not what you freaking think.
Yeah.
Like
Oh, and she,
growing up watching her on Wizards of Waverly Place, I had no idea that at the exact same time, like this is what this girl is going through.
yeah, I definitely recommend anybody who's listening to check her out. I don't know if it's on Netflix or what it is, but she does have a doc. Probably Google it and see what the name of it is. I don't know offhand.
I think it's Hulu, but
Hulu,
I
it
could be
might be. It fantastic though, fantastic. But man, that girl struggled. And again, and one of those things you never know. You think people have money, the nice house, the whole world at their
wrong.
fingertips. That doesn't make you happy. It
Hmm.
really doesn't. Some of those things might help people. Sure, who doesn't want to, be able to pay off their bills and not have financial struggles? But in the end, that doesn't make you a happy person.
Hmm.
And just looking at the celebrities and what they go through really does show that. I didn't mean
Yeah.
to really switch gears. I just wanted
No,
to
it's okay.
um, kind of bring up what you were talking about when you were talking about going back and forth to LA. So
Yeah.
I'm thankful for your experiences, but I'm glad that that path didn't go to a you know
A
a
lifetime
lifestyle of that.
situation that unfortunately fame is a non-negotiable, unsignable deal.
And I'm going to
Once
be honest, with your mental health struggles, I don't
I wouldn't have
I don't think
it wouldn't
that's
have
a
been good.
life. And I couldn't do it. I couldn't do it. And I don't think it
Yeah.
would have been a life
The
that would have made you happy.
criticism
Mm-mm.
that kind of leads into the next thing I wanted to talk about is like how I deal with criticism.
Hmm.
I am not someone I am I am 50% so confident in myself and 50% so worried about what other people think. And I feel like I developed this very odd but strong need to please people from a young age, and to be honest, like that's something I'm not really sure where it comes from. I don't It's hard for me to wrap my head around because in my immediate household and the four walls that I was raised in, I I truly feel like I was raised in a very like unbiased, judgment-free household. Like I really feel like within my four walls I felt very safe to just exist.
Hmm.
But I feel like honestly everywhere else outside of that, I was always trying to seek approval, whether it be through my relationship with my birth father, through trying to get roles in this extremely competitive industry from a young age and having my looks and what I'm comfortable and not comfortable doing at what age I am and how much money they're willing to pay me for how old I am, and then going to school and trying to make these strong friendships, and then once I had been at school long enough to make friendships, switching schools and doing it over again. And like I don't really ever remember a time where I felt super
Hmm.
stabilized for like any point in my life, like consistently was in the same place. And maybe that's a normal thing. Maybe everybody can look back at their life and really break it into these chunks and points of time where things are super different from them. But the way that it impacted me was this like need to like not tell anyone no, or caring too much when someone doesn't like me, because I feel like my time in a certain situation is already so limited. I'm always so focused on what the next situation is going to be for me that when something's not going right in this one, it just makes me feel so unsettled and uprooted and uncomfortable. So I don't know if that makes sense how I'm
Does. Yeah.
explaining it, but
No, it definitely does. Um, so at what point do so you always felt growing up like you could tell that, something wasn't right, or that you were maybe not coping, not great coping skills in certain areas.
yeah.
And I mean, there was a time where I did take you to therapy, to try to work out some of these issues, and some of the issues you mentioned, your biological father, who really wasn't involved much in your life, trying to work out some of those. Does that contribute to what you're going through? With that being said, she did grow up with an amazing dad in her life. So,
Mm-hmm.
um,
For as long as I can remember, I don't remember a time where dad was not in
and
my
and
life.
and I think that is so important, because you did grow up with an amazing role model father. So you didn't grow up
Hmm.
fatherless, but I think there's
Yeah, no,
still,
dad's my hero. I say that proudly.
but I still think the reality is that you have a biological father who didn't play a part in your life, and
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 easily was accessible to
and I
me. Chose not
and I
to.
think that contributes to some of the struggles you have. I mean, I don't know how it can't, because I don't know what that would feel like, but I think there's got to be a level of abandonment of some sort, um, even though you still had a stable dad in your life who considered you his own. You know what I mean?
And it's strange because in I've noticed a pattern in myself, which is something I've really been trying to like recognize in future relationships moving forward. But when it comes to friendships or romantic partners that maybe aren't working out, or I'm happy, but I can see that they're maybe not in it anymore, I feel the need to like end things first because I would rather leave and be heartbroken than like you leave me. Like I like the control and the power over the situation of knowing that it was my decision. Nobody did this to me, which is a really weird like take and unhealthy, to be honest, like way to feel. People should be free to make their own decisions and I shouldn't be making them
Mhm.
for them out of, that
Yeah.
fear.
Mhm.
But it's weird because I think when it comes to my birth dad, I have this feeling of it's more like lack of feeling versus
Mhm.
shitty feeling.
Mhm.
Which like there I don't remember any huge blow up that ended the point
Mhm.
of when I was seeing him to when I
Mhm.
wasn't. I just remember getting to a point where I was like, all right, I'm old enough to voice that these visits are doing nothing for me and I'm not enjoying them and I'm not comfortable, so I don't want to do it anymore. And he was okay with that decision and things went from there. And it's been years now since I've gotten happy birthday, Merry Christmas. I've also gotten happy birthday on the wrong day before, which is funny in hindsight, but it's like I don't know where this fear of the words or like the vocalization of like I don't want you
Mhm.
comes into play because that conversation was never even had with him. Like it was my decision to end, you know, that that relationship, I guess, if you will.
Yes, yes, but I mean, I guess looking back too, there was definitely a lack of effort. I mean, I think as a parent, it's your job as a parent to be the parent and to reach out. It's not your
Mm-hmm.
job as the child to maintain that relationship. It's the parent's job. And this isn't a we're not here to bash. That's not the point of this episode at all. Not
No, no,
bash anybody, but
no.
it's a reality. It's a real life, and it's your real life. I mean, this is your life, right? And there was a
Mm-hmm.
lack of effort, and it was put on
And I have
you.
no hate. I have no
No.
anger. I wish nothing but wellness and blessings and health and a happier life and whatever that means for anyone. I hold
Hmm.
no anger, no hatred, no
Hmm.
despair. There was no abuse. There was
Hmm.
no mistreatment. There was just also not a lot of love and not a lot of effort.
Hmm.
um which I think people, I think that's a big reason I don't talk about the lack of a relationship with my fathers, because I know so many people whose fathers abused them or whose fathers, walked out or stepped out in a way worse way, and they didn't have the support system of a male figure in the house the way that I did with dad growing up.
Yeah.
And just so everyone knows, when I say dad, I'm referring to my mom's current husband. That's my dad. Yeah, I'm not even gonna say stepdad because that's my dad. But just to clear that up
Hmm.
because it might be confusing to hear me go back and forth between the two of them. Um, but I don't harbor any negative feelings. I don't look back and feel anger or even sadness. Like that's what I mean. It's weird like that I have this huge issue with like rejection, but I also don't have any anger towards where that feeling kind of came from.
Hmm.
So it's kind of hard for me to wrap my head
Yeah.
around.
Yeah.
I think the real signs for me that I needed to reach out for help started appearing more towards my adult
Hmm.
life. 2019 to 2021 is without a doubt the hardest years I've ever lived on this earth. Obviously, this was a hard time for everyone around the world, and I don't want to dispute anyone's struggles with the pandemic, because this was a time where every household across the globe was living in fear and stress and uncertainty.
And
Um,
loss. I mean, people, there
and
was
loss and
loss. Yep.
grief
Yep.
and yep. But I had so much going on behind closed doors as well that really caused, I think, mental illness to take over my life. During the COVID lockdowns, I was battling a ton of physical health issues, which at the time I didn't realize were either contributing to or because of COVID. And I was being hospitalized for certain things, doing blood tests up the wazoo, sick every other week to the point that I was bedridden, like not talking a cold, like couldn't get up the subway stairs in New York City because I just couldn't catch my breath. And being alone in New York because it's COVID and there's not public transportation and everything is on lockdown, and I can't go home to go see a doctor with my mom as easily as I'd like to. And on top of that, I was also dealing with a domestic abusive relationship at the time, that I was living with this person. And I was living with this person without a job, without the income to get myself out of this living situation, without being physically healthy enough to even defend myself in this situation. And at this time I was so weak physically and mentally that it was it was really easy to, I feel like, play on my mental health. He was able to come home when I was sick and bring me flowers and get me food and nurse me back to health. So I had him to thank for helping me through this tough time. And then as soon as those tables turned and I pissed him off for doing the wrong thing, now I'm going into this mentally just shut down state while my body is not physically healthy as
Mm-hmm.
well. I wasn't sleeping, I wasn't eating, I wasn't acting right, I wasn't thinking about consequences with my decisions. I was literally just thinking about getting to the next day, and I'll take a solution when it throws it in my lap, but I'm not looking for it because I don't want the ass beating that looking for it is going to come with.
Mm-hmm.
And that was a very difficult and isolating situation to be in at a time when the whole world was also so consumed with so much struggle. I was such a small portion of the pain happening
Mm-hmm.
in the entire world at that time.
Mm-hmm.
And I feel like the stress just kind of consumed me. And I got to the point where I woke up and I was more irritated that I woke up than scared that I didn't. And I've never been in a place where I have considered making an action to hurt myself or take my own life. But I have been in a mental state where I wouldn't be upset if that's what happened. If he finally just did it and snapped, it'd be better than where I was in that situation. And that was a very terrifying mindset for me to be in, because I consider myself somebody who was always able to find a light. At the end of the tunnel, I was always able to get back to my like bubbly, outgoing, loud, opinionated self. And now this was a point in time where like I didn't even want to have opinions. I didn't want to have feelings. I didn't want to have thoughts. I didn't want to
Mm-hmm.
have any characteristics about me that could piss someone off. And I wanted to be as neutral and borderline and baseline as possible. And I really lost myself in that.
And I want to just with that, there's so much more to that piece that you're talking about right now, that relationship. So there is going to be an episode where we're going to have a guest on. We're hoping also that was in a similar situation. There's differences, obviously. Everybody's situation is different, but similarities. But we are really going to delve into talking about domestic violence and more of Kaylin's experience. And so I just wanted to say that we are going to focus on that solely in an upcoming episode. And obviously, as your mom, it breaks my heart that you went through that. You know, and I'll get more into that in the episode, but I mean, I did see some red flags, but it's really hard because unless you're in a place where you want to hear it, or you want to hear it from me, or you're ready to admit it to other, there's so many different dynamics. But I'm just thankful that you did get out and that you are safe. Um, but I think with that experience, that really continued to multiply and layer on the mental health issues and the struggles, because now not only are you dealing with all your past experiences and trying to figure out, why did I struggle so much with this, and why do I feel like this, and why am I scared of this, like I just can't wrap my head around it. Now you're dealing with the fear and the I can't post a diagnosis, I'm not a therapist, but I would say like the post traumatic stress from your prior experiences,
I've been diagnosed with PTSD from a
okay,
psychiatrist, so I would say that that's accurate.
yes, I would.
There's times where I wake up in the middle of the night having nightmares
Mhm. And,
about
well, you would say
different
that you're even
situations.
afraid to walk out your door because you're afraid he's like under the staircase, like found you, because he doesn't know where she is at this point in time. We've worked really hard to protect her in that sense, and we will get.
And keep my life, which I appreciate. You worked very hard to protect me without uprooting me,
Hmm.
which is something
Hmm.
that I take a lot of, gratitude in my family for, because I know that that wasn't an easy decision to make as a parent, to allow your child to
Nope.
walk back into a world that you can't protect them from, and for you to trust me that when I said I was done, I was done. I think that that is one of the most meaningful things that you've ever done for me, was trust my honesty and trust my strength, that when I was done, and didn't give me judgment for how long that it took. And I think, I truly believe I'm lucky, because I had to what I would consider the most important tool in getting help, which is the support of my family, not even emotionally, but willing to make the phone calls, willing to come out and get me, willing to do the long drives. Um, and I wasn't, and I'm still not always ready in every situation to ask for help. But whenever I do, you and dad, Mimi and Papa, aunts and uncles have always been the first ones lined up to do whatever it is that I ask you that I need help with. So I do have a lot of gratitude and your trust and your faith in me in that situation.
And twofold, I mean, same thing back this way. I mean, you've said since that situation when you finally did feel that you could reach out and let us know, or you were at a point where you had to let us know. I mean, I think your safety was really in jeopardy. You had to at that point. But saying from here on out, you will never be in a situation like that where you don't reach out to us and let us know you need help.
Mm-hmm.
And you've done that, and just trusting us that we will always be there to support you. And we always say we are a family unit. We've had a lot of calls with a lot of, what do we do, Kaylin? I don't know that the city's the place for you. You're a lot of things you've dealt with, a lot of things you've dealt with in the city, where we've talked about, we need to have a family meeting. I think you need to come home. I don't think this is safe. I don't think this is the place for you. I don't think it's helping you, but I think it's still supporting what you want and trying to make it
Mm-hmm.
work, because that's where you want to be. So I think we've
You've
really.
always acknowledged that I had my independence taken away from me, and you never did the same thing. Even though it would be
Mhm.
coming from a place of love and not control, you have always acknowledged that the one thing that I deserve post that experience is my independence and my ability to choose my own way. And I think that that is something that even some people with the most supportive families aren't able to say. I think that's a hard thing to expect from your family. Um,
Mhm. Mhm. Absolutely, absolutely. And I mean, I'm glad that we have the relationship that we do and the family support, because you're right. Not everybody has that family support. We are blessed that we do. But that's certainly not everybody's situation by far. So moving forward, what do you see in terms of trying to get help, or what tools? I think mental health is a lifelong struggle, a lifelong journey, a lifelong path. I don't think it goes away. I think you find the coping skills and you
mhm.
learn skills on how to deal with feelings. So what do you see yourself doing moving forward, or what do you have lined up? What steps to take,
Yeah.
um, to try to
So
make it more manageable for you?
yeah, I think going back a little bit, the first thing that I did when I was in that situation is um I reached out for help through a counselor. I was able to be partnered with a an organization that is called Day One. If you are in the New York area listening to this and you are dealing with a domestic violence relationship, immigration issues, child support issues, finding a job, really anything, and you're a woman, they are pro bono. They work for the state to really help people in the New York community get through those situations. So I'll definitely put their information in the description, and I'm sure every state has something similar lined up, so we can do some research into that as well. Um, but once I was, kind of seeking help on how to leave that relationship, I started to focus on my physical health. I realized I couldn't be messing with both at the same time. One of them needed to be in check to give me the strength to get the other one back on check, which is still an ongoing journey
Mm-hmm.
for me. I'm still undergoing testing and trying to kind of figure out how COVID affected my body when there's not much studies on how that happened. Um, but I went to a physician, started getting my tests done. Haven't kept up with therapy as recently. It's something that I'm looking to get back into now. And mom, you've been helping me with, but that's definitely one of my next big steps. I also have a resolution this year to dedicate more time to physical activity, but change my mindset of it from anything to do with like weight loss or getting fit and have it completely be like just moving my body, giving myself reason to move and get up. So whether it be a yoga class or a walk or the gym or a dance class, just finding something that keeps me moving,
Mm-hmm.
gives me something to get out of bed on my days off. I've also, since you've gotten into spirituality, which I'll let you talk about a little bit, I've been kind of diving into that journey, journaling,
Mm-hmm.
meditating. Um, I got good juju crystals everywhere in my house.
Yeah, me too. I mean, but again, if it's that's not for everybody, it works for us. Um, but there's so many different approaches. Whether you're somebody who is going to go the spiritual route, or a combination of things. I mean, I really do think journaling helps. Meditation for
Mm-hmm.
me, it centers me, it calms my brain, it takes out all of those racing thoughts, and it centers me and grounds me. Um,
Mm-hmm.
so that's something that's helpful for me, and that's what yoga does for me, also. So those are tools. But again, I said earlier on, I take medication. I do take medication, so one doesn't take the place of the other. But it's like
Mm-hmm.
a natural, I can't think how to say the word, naturopathic, holistic approach for some people is the route to go. Therapy for some people, psychiatry for some people. Every option is not the right option for you. But if you are struggling with mental health, I certainly encourage you to seek out some sort of support, whether it's a support group, whether it's like Affirming Always, where you're able to share and talk about things and not keep them inside, or whether it's going to see a therapist, a psychiatrist. Some people don't want medication, and there's other ways to handle it without medication. So I just
I think
definitely.
the most important thing, if anyone listens to anything I say in this episode, that I have learned and is something that I mantra and repeat to myself every single day. Life isn't supposed to be shitty. Like you get one of them and you're here and you should be here and you already are. So if there's something that can help make this life that much better for you, like why not help yourself? And it's a hard step, and I'm not saying it's easy because it took me years, and I was 22 years old before I was like, hey, maybe I should talk to someone about this. Like, you know what I mean? I'm not trying to make it sound like it's like, yeah, just pick up the phone and call them. Everything's going to be better. But you have one life to live, and you have every right to live that one life to the best, highest quality, safest, warmest extent. And there's always going to be shitty things happening outside of your immediate existence or in your immediate existence.
Mm-hmm.
There's always going to
Mm-hmm.
be something bad to find. But as corny as it sounds, there's always going to be a sunrise. And there's always going to be someone smiling for every person there is crying. And there's always going to be someone being born for every death. And there's always going to be a comedy movie for every horror movie. And there's, you know what I mean? There's always going to be somebody experiencing a miracle while someone's experiencing a tragedy. And I'm not saying not to focus on the tragedy, but if you're going to focus on the bad, you have to focus on the good too. You don't get to pick and choose what parts of the world you want to listen to and still expect it to be a good
Mm-hmm.
place. And I think that's important.
Yep. And every day that you've gotten through your worst days. You've made it through your worst days, and you're still here. And again, like you said, I mean, this is life. There's going to be ups and downs. There's going to be losses, but there's going to be loss of life. There's going to be loss of loved ones. There's going to be loss of jobs potentially. There's going to be bad situations that you might be living in. You could be in an abusive situation. You could be dealing with, trauma from a child, or being assaulted, or any number of things. Crime, victims of crime. But there's also the good. You've gotten through all those tough days, and you're still here. You've made it, and you just definitely, like Kaylin said, I encourage you to try to find the good, because there is always something good. Whether it's the sun that's shining outside, the birds singing, the
Putting
person.
mascara
Put your
on.
put your mascara on. That's right. That's right. That's a good way to end the episode. Put on that mascara.
No, I think this was good. I think this was definitely on the more emotional side for me. I'm a little less jokey on these topics, I think, than I was last episode, because this is something that I'm still figuring out, and kind of trying to figure out what it is that I do have going on, and figuring out the right medications and steps for myself. But with that, I'm super, super grateful that I have a mom that I can sit down and like explain these feelings to. And I think that you can relate to a lot of like my normal anxieties, maybe not some of the more traumatic experiences, but at least some of the like day to day, hey, today the energy just don't feel good and I don't know why, but I don't like
We have
it.
that conversation a lot. We'll call,
Yep.
and one will be crying, and then the other one will be crying. Like, I just don't know. I can't pinpoint what's wrong. It's just one of those days, and
Yeah.
that's just, it is what it is. Get through it,
Yeah.
move on, and keep plugging along.
We'll definitely provide links to resources in the description of the episode that we mentioned, as well as, the National Suicide Hotline, the National Domestic Violence Hotline. But I also want to end the episode just on commending you on the steps you've already taken. And that even just like getting up the next morning is a step. Like, that's a step.
Mm-hmm.
That is faith. That is hope. When you feel like you've run out of faith and hope, if you're awake and you're walking around, you still got a little bit left in you. So take that, hold on to it. And yeah, thank you all for listening to episode 2 of our podcast. Any last thoughts, Mama?
I'm just really proud of you. I'm proud of you. I know that wasn't easy.
Thank you.
You did a lot of sensitive topics. So I'm proud of you, of how far you've come, and just your openness to continue to just try to better yourself, because like you said, you have one life, and it's a beautiful one, and I want you to experience all that life has to offer you. So I'm just proud of you.
Thank you. I'm proud of you too, Mama.
Thanks, babe.
So we will see y'all next episode, episode 3. And just remember, no matter what you are going through, this too shall pass.
That's right.